Greetings, YugiCube, and welcome to the Dragoon's Den. Today's episode, I've got for you guys a deck profile, but it's going to be on something that we don't even have here in the TCG yet, and that's because Abyss Rising isn't out yet, and as you can tell by the date of this video, it won't be for at least one more month. But that's not going to stop me from printing proxy cards for the purpose of this video, and some fun duels against my friends later on. The deck I am talking about is probably the one that's got the most attention going into Abyss Rising, and that would be Mermail Atlantean. Okay, so the best way to describe this deck is it's something that can OTK, but it doesn't have to. It's got a lot of power plays without it. It can just simply win through typical combo stuff like Diva into Marksman, make a level 5, and just sit on it. Or you can just simply win through advantage of your monsters. The deck can 2-turn OTK depending on what kind of field your opponent has. And it's basically something you always want to have a monster on the field against, because if you leave your field open to attacks, you're going to start taking a lot of damage, because the deck can pile on 3,600 damage total with one card. So let's begin with the monsters, and I'll start with Deep Sea Diva, i.e. Tour Guide before Tour Guide was even made. For the people who don't know, and they do exist, i.e. Dueling Network, when this card is normal summoned, you can special summon one level 3 or lower Sea Serpent type monster from your deck. That's it. So with this one card, you can make a level 4 Synchro, or a level 5 Synchro, or you can even make a rank to exceed. Their effects are not negated, which is awesome, because it works with another card in the deck, and she's just basically one of your best toolboxes in the game, because you can just summon her, get a level 3, make a level 5 Synchro, or you can just simply sit on Gachi Gachi if you went first. Diva just does a lot of things for this deck. And speaking of what Diva can do, she can also bring out one of the best monsters in the deck, and that's Atlantean Marksman. Now, Atlanteans all share the same effect, that if they are sent to the graveyard for the activation of a water monster's effect, i.e. their cost, which would be discarding for Gungnir, sending from deck to the graveyard with the effect of Undying, or detaching for Leviathan Dragon. Doesn't matter how they hit the graveyard, they just have to be sent to the graveyard by cost. In doing so, they'll do something. Marksman, if he's sent for the cost of a water monster's effect, he will pop one face down monster your opponent has. So that's great for clearing a back row that you're kind of thinking is a force or a torrential, or you can pop that monster that your opponent set that's likely a gear de-armor, that kind of thing. He's 1400 and he's level 3, and his effect is when he inflicts damage to your opponent by battle, you can special summon a level 4 or lower Atlantean Sea Serpent type monster other than himself. And that actually puts your opponent on a bit of a time clock, because you can just swing with this guy for 1400 damage, and then you'll drop an 1800 beater, which puts you at 3200 damage in one turn. If your opponent doesn't have a monster answer to that, or you bounce their only monster back, then on your turn you're going to swing for another 1400, which will then get you out another 1800 beater, which will then, you're already at 4600 damage, so those two 1800 attacks will put your opponent at 8100 damage, and they lose, or somewhere around that. Basically, he's a 2-turn OTK on his own. And he's probably one of the better monsters to draw without anything else, because if your opponent just goes set MST path, you can be like, summon, swing, 1400, then 1800. You just gain one card advantage, and yeah, your opponent now has to answer your 2 monsters as opposed to your 1. Speaking of the 1800 guy, 4 copies of Atlantean Dragoons, 1800, 0 defense. Level 3 and lower Sea Serpent type monsters you control can attack directly, so this guy. And when he is sent to the graveyard for the cost of a water monster's effect, you can search any Sea Serpent out there from your deck to your hand, other than himself. So how about that? A Super Rhoda for an entire monster class. That's crazy. Could you imagine if you could search out any warrior in the game or any dragon in the game from your deck to your hand? Whoa. So you're likely going to be getting Diva with this guy, Marksman, Elemental Lord, or Abyss Megalo, Dragon Riders, Dragoons. He's a very good card. Max out. Already discussed him, so let's go back to our other Atlantean monster, and that would be Heavy Arms, the one I don't really care for a whole lot. His effect is, once per turn you can normal summon or set a Sea Serpent type monster in addition to your normal summon or set during this turn. When he's sent to the graveyard for the activation of a water monster's effect, pop one face-up card your opponent controls. So what's so bad about it, you say? Well, the thing is, this card exists only to be used with another water monster, either Deep Sea Diva or Mermail. If you just draw him on his own, he's terrible. No attack, 1600 defense, and he's a level 2. Marksman can at least get in there and put another monster on the board. And Dragoons is an 1800 beater. This guy, not so much. In fact, I might take him out of the deck entirely, but I do like the one-of because he gets rid of dumb shit like Swords of Revealing Light and Skill Drain. Then we'll get to the Mermail monsters and start with the best one, who is one of the best floaters I've ever seen, and that's Mermail this Slind. When she's destroyed by anything, you can special summon any Mermail monster from your deck to the field other than herself. Her effect can only be used once per turn, but you don't care. She's level 3, she's Aqua, she's 1500 attack, and you can just simply set it, and if your opponent knows what you're playing, they're going to be hesitant to attack because they don't know if they can deal with being able to, with a monster that can search any other monster of the archetype out of the deck. It could be a 1600 Stratos, it could be a 1700 Monster Reincarnation, or it can even be your 2400 attack Beatstick, Mermail Abyss Megalo. Now this card is quite the doozy. If you get his effect off, you're probably going to be in a very good position, as he is as follows. He's a level 7 Sea Serpent type monster with 2400 attack and 1900 defense. You can discard 2 water monsters from your hand to special summon this card from your hand. If you do, add 1 Abyss, spell, or trap card from your deck to your hand, other than something that I don't know. It's like, I'll list it in the description below, but you're mostly going to be using them to get the best trap card in the entire deck. Furthermore, once per turn, you contribute 1 face-up attack position monster you control. This card can attack twice during that turn. So, yeah, Megalo, Abyss Megalo, whatever you want to call him, I see this guy being bumped to Ultra. He's just too good as a super. This is way too good as a rare. I imagine this will be a super, this will be an Ultra. Calling it right now. And he works beautifully with Atlantean monsters because his effective special summon is a cost. So you activate his effect, you discard your 2 Atlantean monsters. If your opponent does not have warning, that's it then. He's going to hit the field, he's going to get his search effect off, and your 2 Atlantean monsters are going to get their own effects off. He's initially a -2 to special summon, but if his effect goes through, then you're going to make up at least one of those cards lost by searching, and then your Atlantean monsters, if you discard them, will also get their effects off, which will either break even if you discard 1 Atlantean monster, or you'll go +1 if you discard 2. So this guy causes a lot of shit to go on, and his effect to attack twice is also useful because you can just tribute a Marksman to pop that face down monster that you're reading. Could be a Reaper, or you could just tribute Armed Soldier to get rid of shit like Gravity Bind. Blythe is a level 7 Sea Serpent type monster, he's water I mean, and it's not that hard for this deck to actually drop him, so you can even Sea Summon Big Eye very easily with this deck, and I imagine Big Eye is going to actually jump in price after Abyss Rising. So pick that card up if you haven't already. Then 2 copies of Mermail Abyss Pike. When this card is normal special summon, you can discard 1 water monster from your hand, you know, like these guys, in order to add 1 level 3 water type monster from your deck to your hand. So this guy, Mermail Abyss Slind if you haven't already, Mermail Abyss Goon. There's a lot of useful cards you can search out. Hell, you can search out Snowman Eater that you sided in. 1600 attack is alright, and he's a level 4, which is useful for one of the Xyz monsters that you want to summon. You're most likely going to be normal summoning it, or summoning it through the effect of Mermail Abyss Slind, which is actually pretty cool. I'm teching 1 copy of Mermail Abyss Turge. When this card is normal special summon, you can discard 1 water monster from your hand to add 1 level 3 or lower water monster from your graveyard to your hand, i.e. Mermail Abyss Slind, or Atlantean Marksman, or Deep Sea Diva. 1700 attack, level 4. Again, you're just probably going to summon it through the effect of Mermail Abyss Turge, Abyss Slind. Our last Mermail monster is a tech copy of Mermail Abyss Goon. She's level 3 Aqua, so you can summon it. You can search it out with Mermail Abyss Pike. 1100 attack, or is that 1400? I can't read that. But when this card is discarded, you can special summon 1 Mermail monster from your graveyard other than herself. Her effect can only be used once per turn, as are these guys. Their effects can only be used once per turn. Like the effect of Mermail Abyss Pike can only be used once per turn. So you can't go normal summon this, discard this, special summon another one, discard, and so forth. So She leads to some really weird plays, especially if you like have a Mermail, a Megalo in the graveyard. You can discard her for a Water Monster's effect, and then you can special summon this guy, and that's pretty cool. Last monster is Moulin Glacial, the Elemental Lord, i.e. the water version of Grand Soil. Whereas that guy was a walking monster reborn on 2800 body, this guy is a delinquent duo on 2800 body. He's a sea serpent, he's level 8, he cannot be normal summoned or set, he cannot be special summoned only by having exactly 5 water monsters in the graveyard, blah 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 blah. When this card is special summoned, discard 2 cards from your opponent's hand at random. Now, there has been some confusion about this guy if your opponent doesn't have 2 cards in hand, if they have only 1 card. Moulin Glacial will discard it regardless. All they have to do is just have cards in their hand and he will discard them. It doesn't matter if they have 2 or if they only have 1, he will get rid of them. If they have more than 2 cards in the hand, then you just randomly pick stuff. And that discard can win you games. I've knocked shit like Dark Hole and Gores out of my opponent's hand by just summoning this thing. Only 1 copy is needed because you can search out with the effect of Atlantean Dragoons, and he's kind of a dead draw in the late game. He's really good early on when you can set your graveyard up for it, but otherwise, barring some really great Pot of Avarice plays, he's going to be awful later on. And this is for the monsters. For the spells, I'm running triple MST because I want to get rid of back row so my guys can get through safely. I've seen people run builds that don't use MST, and I can understand why. They would just like to use Atlantean Marksman, Diva to like force out the back row and then flip up Call the Haunted and just keep pushing. So either one works. Same for Salvage. Not everyone likes this card here, but I do. It's a +1. It gets you back Atlantean Dragoons, gets you back not Atlantean Dragoons. It'll get you back Atlantean Marksman, Diva, Mermail, Abyss Gun, Mermail, Abyss Sling. Yeah, you can run 1, you can run 2, you can run none. It's player preference. What you do need to run though would be the Trinity for obvious reasons, and Pot of Avarice because this deck can set the grave up for this very easily, and Avarice is stupid. Then we get to the traps with one of the best cards in the entire deck. If Mermail Abyss Sling is the best monster, then Abyss Sphere is the best trap card. When you activate this card, you can special summon 1 Mermail monster from your deck to the field. During the next end phase after this card is activated of your opponent's turn, it's destroyed. You cannot activate spell cards while this card is face up on the field. Gee, that's a lot of bad things, right? Wrong. What makes Abyss Sphere so cool is, number 1, you can search it out through the effect of Abyss Megalo if you special summon it by discarding 2 water monsters, which is an effective special summon, by the way. Let me get him back out here for a moment. Where did I put that guy? Okay, so yeah, I just want to quickly talk about this guy. I apologize, I'm kind of on all over the place. Abyss Megalo's effect is, it's an effective special summon, so your opponent cannot Thunder King or Solemn Judgment it. They can warning him, however. So yeah, if you summon this thing, you can search out Abyss Sphere, and then you can just set it. And that's where the fun begins, because your opponent declares an attack against your open field, you can change Abyss Sphere to summon Abyss Sling. They'll kill this thing, and then she'll activate, which will then get you Megalo Abyss. Or if you need to search something out from your deck to your hand, then you can just grab Abyss Pike. Abyss Sphere just leads to so many crazy plays because it's basically a 4th, 5th, and 6th copy of any Mermail monster, especially Abyss Sling. You can also use it offensively by swinging with your monsters, and you can just flip up Abyss Sphere and then special summon a Megalo Abyss from the deck. Now, admittedly, this card negates the effects of the monsters that it summons while they're on the field. This is the exception because, of course, she activates the grave, but you can still do a quick 2400 damage swing per game. You can help you set up some Xyz plays, and as far as it destroying itself goes, this is how it works. If you activate this during your opponent's main phase, battle phase, or main phase 2, once they enter their end phase, it will destroy itself at first opportunity. If you activate this during your opponent's end phase though, like you would go, oh, end phase MST, it won't destroy itself because it's not the next end phase. It's kind of confusing describing how this card works, but there is a ruling on this in its wiki page, so I would check that out. I've had some arguments come up with this in the past on whether or not if I activate this during my opponent's battle phase, if it'll destroy itself at the end of that very turn. It will. And that's what makes this awesome, because you can just flip it up, and your opponent will know what this does, and they'll be hesitant to attack it. But at the same time, if they don't answer this thing, they'll just nuke itself in the end phase, and you'll get a 2400 beater. And what's neat about this card is, if your opponent does something stupid like blind MST, you can chain this, get Abyss Slinned, MST nukes it, Abyss Slinned activates, you put on a Mega Abyss, and suddenly that turn 1 Thunder King that you were going to plan on summoning doesn't look so good. And that's why the card is awesome. Speaking of chainable cards, I am running 2 copies of Compulsory Evacuation Device. This deck benefits from taking shots to your opponent's clear field like Atlantean Marksman or Mega Abyss, so Compulsory can just bounce that monster back and you can just start getting in there. Not to mention it can bounce your guys back, which you don't care because you can just discard them for effects. So I like Compulsion here. I also like Call the Haunted. It's much like Abyss Sphere. You can use it to revive Abyss Slinned, and then if it dies you can get Abyss Megalo, that kind of thing. It punishes people for blind MST and that kind of stuff. And then finally, 2 Torrential Tribute and a Solemn Judgment. TT is obvious in here. You don't really mind losing your field to a TT. If you just set Abyss Slinned and a Torrential Tribute and they go Tour Guide, you flip up TT, you're going to keep your field and your opponent isn't, because this will die and it'll get you a Megalo. And then Solemn Judgment is just Solemn Judgment. And that's it for the main deck. Now for the extra deck. I am running 1 copy of Army Arm because Diva plus Atlantean Heavy Arms makes this. Catastor and Librarian is my level 5 synchros. No, they're the best level 5s out there. 1 Proxy, Deloran, Tiger King, and the Ice Barrier, because I don't actually own one for some reason. He is made through Diva plus any of the level 4 water monsters you've got. You can return cards or face-up cards you control to increase this guy's attack by 500 for that turn. That's some usability. 1 Goonier, you're probably going to make this through Diva, Marksman, and Heavy Arms. Goonier discards for his effect, so you can discard 2 Atlantean monsters to pop 2 cards and then get 2 more effects, which is possibly 2 more pops or 2 searches, that kind of thing. Plus he's a level 7 water monster. Then for the last synchro, 1 copy Mistworm. This is doable through the effect of Diva, Marksman, and Dragoons, which is actually not that hard of a play to do. Then for the Xyz, 1 Gachi Gachi and Daigusto, the 2 best ranked 2s in the game. You can make this with Diva plus Diva plays. Arrow Shark and Leviathan Dragon, 2 rank 3 Water Xyz. We'll get to those in a moment. Maestroke, one of the best ranked 4s. If it gets you Marrowgeist, detaches for its cost, so being able to send this to the graveyard while also bouncing a Sangan back into the deck so it doesn't get a search, that's hilarious. Plus, she's also 2100 beats. 1 copy of Bahamut Shark, who's probably not going to be here in the TCG. If he isn't, then Snowdust Giant will have to do. You detach 1 Xyz material from this card to special summon 1 rank 3 Water Xyz monster, rank 3 or lower Water Xyz monster from your extra deck. He can attack in turn use his effect, but being able to summon a Leviathan Dragon or an Arrow Shark for free, preferably Arrow Shark because Leviathan can't swing directly without materials, whereas this guy's a 1900 beater, that's actually pretty neat. And he'll trigger the effect of Atlantean Dragoons. Then 1 copy of Big Eye, who I have to pick up right away because he's going to be like 30 bucks after the set. You can make this with 2 Megalos, which isn't that hard. And lastly, 1 copy of Mermail Gaio Abyss, who's also made with 2 Megalos. While this card is Xyz material, level 5 and higher monsters cannot declare attacks. Once per turn, you can attach an Xyz material during either player's turn. Monsters with attack less than his own, which is 2800, their effects are negated. He's a pretty good boss monster that can like deter your opponents from attacking with their big guys, and if your opponent's like doing some crazy plays you don't want to deal with, you can just attach an Xyz material and negate the effects of all other monsters on the field. If you're reading a Raikou or a Reaper, you can just attach a material, attack, and their effects are negated, at least as far as I know. And that's pretty much it for the deck itself. Now, as I mentioned, if we don't get Bahamut Shark here as a TCG, as an OCG import, the Snowdust Giant from Abyss Rising will have to do. You can detach a material from this card, reveal an equal number of water monsters in your hand, and put ice counters on the field equal to those number of monsters. Monsters with ice counters lose attack, and while that's okay, I guess, Bahamut Shark is just so much better. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this. This has been a very fun deck to play. I've been wanting to play a really good water deck for like ever since I was like a kid. I've been trying to build water decks. Hell, I still remember my what is it called? Crab turtle? You know, that ritual monster. Yeah, I remember trying to build that a while ago. I had fun with that. Umi Rika, Umi, that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is definitely going to be a good deck. Again, I don't know how it's going to do compared to the other decks here in the TCG, but it's definitely going to be solid tier 2, tier 1.5 at best. The fact that it basically lasts at Effect Veiler is pretty neat too, as Diva is really the only one hurt. Abyss Pike, if they Veiler it, you don't care. You're discarding an Atlantean monster, so you're going to get some kind of advantage, so you'll still end up going +1 on your opponent. That all being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you all for watching. Until the next time, take care.